Total War Warhammer 3 has reworked
most of them out here. Creative Assembly has just dropped their Siege Rework promotional video. This one has some juicy details about actual gameplay mechanics and changes for Warhammer 3. I'm really excited about a lot of the new stuff being showcased, although I do have some concerns. It's important to note this is a promotional video, so CA is promoting all the great new stuff to get excited about in the new game. It's not like a PR release addressing the concerns of the community or something like that. So you can just expect it to promote all the great stuff. Obviously, it's not going to focus on anything negative. I'll go through the exciting new reveals and details first, and then I'll talk about my concerns at the end. First big change is improved siege map design. The maps are bigger, the maps are more complex. They have the survival battle mechanics of being able to build barricades and towers. They have new locations that are capturable within the city and a resource mechanic for getting supplies to build those towers and barricades. From what I can see, the new siege maps do look much improved. Their maps are much larger. They offer multiple avenues of approach for the attacker. They also have buildable barricades, so you can sort of funnel the enemy in or block certain avenues of approach. There's also raised platforms and bridges that are not accessible by melee troops from below, so you can set up your ranged troops up there to be protected but be able to shoot down into kill zones on the invading enemy. As we suspected, the supplies mechanic, the buildable barricades, towers and control points that we saw previewed in the survival battles is making a return in the normal siege maps for the campaign, although it's a slightly altered system. There are different types of buildable towers and barricades that each have their own properties. You can build these using supplies that you get over time from controlling the supply points, plus I believe you also start off with a certain amount of supplies at the start of the battle, so you can build some defenses straight away, but you'll get more supplies to be able to build more defenses as time goes on. You can also demolish defenses in one area and rebuild them somewhere else. The enemy can capture certain capture points which will get rid of your defenses in that area. If they do that, you won't get the resources refunded to you though. Overall, the changes seem to be focused on making a sort of city fight mini game that happens after the outer walls have been taken, and then you fight in this sort of tight constraints of the city streets with overlooks and bridges and stuff that you can fire down, barricades and strong points. Some people might think it's a little bit too gamey or MOBA-ish, too sort of dynamic, being able to build and deconstruct these towers and barricades and stuff like that. But apparently the system is quite successful in Three Kingdoms, and it looks like it's actually pretty fun and engaging. It's making the individual siege maps much larger and more interesting. CA have said there's now going to be a much wider selection of potential siege maps. I feel like there's about 2 to 3 per race, not including unique ones like Lothar. So I'm guessing this means perhaps 4 to 6 unique siege maps for walled settlements per race. It looks like different racial types will get different map sets. Cathay and Dwarfs apparently are highly defensive, so they're going to probably share a set of maps. Kislev will have a different type of map setup. Skaven and Greenskins will have a more ramshackle style, and the Chaos Gods will have their own fortresses on the outskirts of the Realms of Chaos. Although even factions that share layout, that share the same maps, will have different dressings that will impact gameplay as well as looks. So, you know, Dwarfs will have stone dwarf towers and stuff like that, whereas Cathay has their sort of Chinese-inspired architecture. So they'll have the same map layout, it'll look different, and it'll actually function slightly differently as well. Just to backtrack slightly, the Chaos Gods will have Chaos Fortresses on the outskirts of the Realm of Chaos. So we already know that the Chaos Gods aren't going to be hordes. This is just confirming that they actually have Chaos Fortresses. I wonder if that's going to be something like a mirror of the Bastion. It seems sort of strange that it's only at the edges of the Realm of Chaos. You'd think that they would be defending against each other within, like with, you know, Nurgle having fortresses to defend against Khorne and vice versa. Don't know whether we're going to have other fortresses within the Realm of Chaos or whether we're going to have other Chaos siege maps outside of the Realm of Chaos, perhaps. That's left open for us to speculate on. As well as adding a lot more siege maps for walled settlements, CA is bringing in minor settlement battles. This is something new to Total War Warhammer that's been in previous titles. Basically, when you attack a minor settlement, instead of having an open field battle, you'll now get an actual siege battle. They've said the difference is that in a minor settlement, there won't be any walls. That's actually an interesting way of phrasing that, because currently minor settlements can have buildable walls for most factions. So I'm not sure if that was just a weird way of phrasing it and they just mean that these minor settlement battle maps that they've designed are only going to be used for non-walled settlements, or if they're actually saying they're going to make a fundamental change to the way the campaign map works, in that minor settlements will be unable to have walls anymore. That was actually something that they did, I think, in Thrones of Britannia. They made it so only the primary region in each province is capable of having walls, and the other minor settlements aren't able to have walls. I think that's probably reading a bit too much into it. It's probably just weird phrasing, and they actually just mean that they're going to be using these new minor settlement battle maps when there are no walls. If there are walls, then I assume they'll still use the normal walled siege battle maps. This map's interesting. It seems to be a map of a smaller settlement with walls, although it is possible that it is a large settlement siege map but the top is cut off. It may just be a different scale, maybe it is just a normal large settlement, but it sort of looks to me like it's sort of smaller and simpler than the much larger full siege battle map. If this is a minor settlement, I think that's quite exciting, as I really like the idea of having different unique unwalled minor settlement maps and different unique walled minor settlement maps. Overall, I think these new siege changes are pretty exciting, pretty ambitious of CA. I don't even know how they're going to train the AI to deal with these complicated maps with so many different aspects to them. I think the Fortress Gate maps that we've already got in Warhammer 2 give us a taste of what this new style of map with different elevations and stuff is going to play like. That'll just be a extension or improvement on what they already tried to do with the Fortress maps. Some people were asking for the ability to put your artillery on the wall so that you can fire effectively to defend with cannons and flat trajectory weapons. They haven't done that, but they have put in these sort of platforms behind the walls, like you see here in the siege battle, allowing you to set up your artillery to be able to sort of fire over the top of your walls, which actually seems more practical anyway. That way troops going over your walls aren't going to immediately capture your artillery. They have kept the pocket ladders. You can see the orcs deploying here. A lot of people have complained about the pocket ladders. As far as I remember, they instituted this because of problems with the AI dealing with scaling walls. I guess they decided at this point it wasn't something that was worth changing. One thing I found disappointing about the Siege rework video is that they didn't hold the walls. The problem with Warhammer 2 is that you put troops on the walls, but they don't really get any advantage, and they can be easily overwhelmed by a strong infantry coming over the walls. In the Siege rework video, you can set up barricades that can then be manned, and the enemy can't scale them. As far as I know, they have to actually destroy the barricade before they can get at the troops behind. Whereas the giant stone outer walls can just be easily scaled. They don't even have to knock them down. And then the walls don't seem to give the defender any advantage in combat, so that melee forces can then just overwhelm them and clear them off the walls. Granted, these are just peasant archers being overwhelmed here, but you would think that if they'd addressed this problem and made the walls defendable, they would have shown it with some sort of stronger infantry, perhaps actually holding and resisting. In the video, they mentioned docking your units on walls, and in the new Siege rework, you'll also be able to dock your units on raised platforms and on barricades. And it says that docking units automatically gives you some sort of buff.
And overlooks are dockable like the primary walls, giving our soldiers all the buffs and benefits of any other docked unit.
This is separate from the AoE buffs that the barricades give you. And from the phrasing, it sounds like we already have dockable unit buffs for our units that are docked on the wall of siege battles, but whatever these dockable buffs are, they don't seem to be enough at the moment to make it worth holding the walls. I wonder if in the siege rework, these dockable buffs will actually make your infantry strong enough to hold the walls against a superior force, which is kind of how walls are supposed to work. It'd be nice if the walls actually had some mechanical advantage for infantry on top of the walls, but even if it is just a buff, If it's strong enough to actually make defending infantry effective on the walls, that would be great. It seems like they may also be bringing in 2-stage sieges for important cities. At the end of the video it says waging has fallen, but the forces of Siege are still going to struggle to take the celestial city above. Made it sound as though there's 2 sieges. They have to overcome the first siege and then fight another siege to take the inner city or the city beyond. That could be quite good for a number of settlements where you have to sort of fight one siege to take the outer wall and conquer the town, but then there's going to be an additional siege inside to take the palace or the keep or something that's fortified within the city walls. We haven't had too much time to absorb all this new information. I had no idea that the Siege rework was dropping today. First impressions? I'm excited, and I'm impressed that CA have been ambitious enough to take this on. I loved everything I saw in the trailer. The visuals are gorgeous, expanded maps, more maps, improved mechanics. Everything that they're showing off here looks amazing. I'm a bit worried about the things that they aren't showing and they haven't addressed. Hopefully we'll see some more information about those mechanics in the future. But I'm sure that over the next few days, further analysis will be done. We'll find some more nuggets in here. If you want to watch the live stream of my reaction and discussion with the community about it, I'll put a link down below. That's all I got for now. Thanks, guys.